Chronicles of a Gooner. Like and subscribe. Chronicles of a Gooner. Harry Symeou time. Arsenal. Come on, you Gunners. Arsenal. Chronicles of a Gooner.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode of the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast with me, your host, Harry Symeou. I'm sure just like me, you guys are buzzing. What a result, what a performance, and just what a night in general at Emirates Stadium for Arsenal, who were 3-1 victors over Bayern Munich, a side that many regard as one of the best on the continent, and for good reason. Yet Arsenal were able to make, in the end, light work of Vincent Kompany's side. We're going to break down the game. We're going to focus on some of the individual performances as well, because there were some really brilliant ones. We're also going to talk about the collective. We're going to talk about how the build-up to this game was strange, and we kind of discussed that on the shows leading into the match, but I feel like it's worth revisiting now that we've seen the game, now that we know the outcome, etc., etc. So there's a lot to get into on this morning's show. I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you so much to everybody who's live with us on YouTube. If you are live with us on YouTube, don't forget to hit that like button on your way in. Subscribe to the channel as well. If you're new, if you're a regular here, you'll know exactly what you're going to get. If you are a listener on Apple or Spotify, please do leave us a review. That really does help. And I'll tell you a little bit later on in the show about what you can get as a patron and how you go about signing up if that is something that interests you. And a big thank you to those that signed up yesterday. Look, there's so much buzz in the comment section. It would be wrong of me not to start the show by just having a read of some of your comments. AFC 777 says, good morning, Harry, in the chat. Great win. That second half. Let's make it a hat trick of great results by getting the win on Sunday. Andy says, oh, good morning, my beautiful people. Life is good right now, isn't it? Iceberg UK says, has anyone seen Harry Kane? The Met Police have just put out a missing persons report. AFC D&B says, morning, all up the Arsenal. Gareth says, it's a great morning to be a Gooner. Auntie Clockwise says, morning, gents. What a feeling. Still buzzing now. Oh, mate, it's just amazing, isn't it? It's just amazing when your team puts in a display like that. And listen, there'll be people that will be sitting there for whatever reason going, oh, it's the league phase, man. Calm down, chill out, whatever. And that's fine, okay? But you got to enjoy football. Otherwise, what the hell is the point in being invested? What the hell is the point giving up your time and showing the commitment that we do if when the good times come along, you don't enjoy it? You've got to enjoy it. You've got to lap it up. You've got to love it. And it's an interesting one, this, because in the lead up to the game, we were talking a lot about whether or not there should be rotation, whether or not Mikel should make multiple changes, whether or not it was right for him to essentially look at this game and say, it'd be nice to win it, but actually the priority is Sunday. And as we got closer and closer to the game, having won the North London derby the way we did, I started to change my tune on that. Now, I admit that my original position was not go out there and take this serious. My original position was, I don't really mind if we drop points here. Not that I want us to drop points, but I don't mind if we do. Like, it's not something I'm going to lose any sleep over if it means that we stand a greater chance of winning against Chelsea at the weekend. But did that look like a group of players to you who were half-arsing it? Because that's not what it looked like to me. And I think it would have been quite easy when Bayern equalised for Arsenal to go, okay, let's just make sure that we don't lose this. It would have been easy for Arsenal around about 70 minutes, which is when we scored the second goal. I think we scored it on 69 minutes to go. We've huffed and we've puffed a little bit. We haven't quite been able to blow the house down. Let's save ourselves a little bit here. Let's protect ourselves a little bit here. Let's just stay compact and essentially cruise to the end of this game and take a point. And, you know, if we take a point, we're still in touch with Bayern, top of the Champions League. We're all good. We're all fine. Our unbeaten run continues, and we're all good. But no, there was a real desire and a determination from those Arsenal players to go out there and show everybody that, you know what, in a battle of Europe's best, Arsenal will come out on top. Arsenal can come out on top. And the performance from start to finish, I thought was brilliant. I thought we saw the many faces of Arsenal, which is something that we talk about quite a bit, which is why we are so damn difficult to beat, because we've got different ways of playing and we're comfortable in our own skin, whatever is required. In the past, you'd have seen Arsenal and many other teams, look to play out from the back as plan A and be very, very reluctant to abandon plan A when it's not working, to the point where you push it so hard, you end up making a mistake and you end up being punished for it. What I really, really loved about Arsenal's performance yesterday was that, like, we as I say, we're so comfortable in our own skin that we go, do you know what? Bayern are pressing us quite well high up the pitch early on in the game. Let's not play through them. Like, to try and play through them would be silly. To try and play through them would be bringing trouble on for ourselves. Let's play over the top of them. And I love that Arsenal are just happy to go, do you know what? You're going to press us, no problem, we'll play over you. When they face a low block, they will play out from the back. When the game state allows, they will play out from the back. I love that we are so intelligent as a team that in game we can make adjustments and switches like that just, make a difference. And that is down to good coaching, but it's also down to player intelligence. I feel like when we talk about tactics and we talk about styles of play, we often, hone in on the manager, and we always talk about the manager's contribution and how the manager made that happen. And if it's bad and it goes wrong, it's always on the manager. But sometimes you need your players to show some in-game intelligence as well. And I know that Mikel Arteta is always on the touchline and he's always orchestrating and pointing and gesticulating and all the rest of it. But sometimes I think we have to give the players credit here as well for looking at it and going, no, that's not the way that you get through this Bayern team. Let's go over the top of them. There are a couple of instances in the first half, I beg your pardon, where they were coming to press us, and we work it back to David Raya, who goes pop and sends a ball over the top. There was one that Timber flicked on for Saka, I think. There was one that Saka flicked on for Madueke once he came onto the pitch. So yeah, there's just so much variety to our game. That's what makes us very, very difficult to live with. Let's start with the goals then, shall we? Let's work our way through them in chronological order. Hold on a second. Why isn't my heat? There we go. I was wondering why it's a bit cold in here. Let's start with the goals, shall we? We'll work through them in chronological order, and we'll begin with Jurrien Timber's goal. Now, if anybody's recent performances deserve a goal, it was Jurrien Timber, because he's just been in outstanding form. He's made that right-hand side his own. He dominates in all aspects and all phases of the game. He's up and down. He's got incredible energy, incredible work rate, power, technical ability. He's just looking like the all-round right back, really. And I don't think on current form there's a better one in world football. Now, you might say that's a stretch. I say it's not. I say that is a legitimately valid opinion to have. And he scores this goal. And it's a really, really interesting goal, because we've seen Arsenal do the whole kind of bus stop routine before, where we line up a number of players at the far post. Bukayo Saka steps up to deliver an in-swinger. Bayern can't leave the near post vacant because A, you're worried about the in-swinger, but B, you're also aware that Arsenal are planning to flood that area as we get closer to the delivery. There was a really, really interesting bit on TNT Sports, which I saw back last night, where at halftime, when the corner was coming in, they were sort of doing this thing where they were like highlighting what Harry Kane's line of sight might have looked like, and the same with some of the other players around him. What's fascinating is that when you watch that corner back again, as Bukayo Saka prepares to deliver and as he steps up to deliver, you get Arsenal players coming from not just one direction, but 2, 3, sometimes 4 different directions. Yes, if you're the guy at the front post, they're coming from behind you, but you don't know which way they're coming. You don't know if they're coming over your right shoulder, if they're coming over your left shoulder. They're not afraid to bump people out of the way. I know that Bayern were desperately appealing for a foul against Manuel Neuer. That was him clutching, man. Because if you watch it again, Timber's making a run across the face of Neuer, and Neuer actually steps into his way to try and block him off. But Timber is just simply too strong, and Timber manages to get in the right place. Neuer's caught in no man's land. The delivery's right on the money, and Timber's able to head it into the back of the net. And Arsenal break the deadlock, and you think, great. Because what we've done up until that point, first 20 minutes, is not give anything stupid away. We've allowed Bayern to have the ball at points, but we've been very, very comfortable out of possession. And we've made sure that we've limited them to very, very little. We've created one or two chances ourselves by being that little bit more direct. And I felt like we kind of were feeling our way into the game. We were figuring each other out. Vincent Kompany said it in his press conference after the game. He said early on, it felt like the two teams were maybe just cancelling each other out a little bit. That's exactly what happened. But Arsenal have this incredible power to influence games from set pieces. And that gives you an advantage in these games where it's going to be the finest of margins that dictates who gets in front. And we know how important getting in front is. You know, it's so important to have something like that up your sleeve, something that you can pull out, something that you can, play as your trump card when necessary. And Arsenal were able to do that. Obviously, then 10 minutes later, we go and concede an equaliser. Now, I got to hold my hands up because in my video that I did from Emirates Stadium yesterday on the Chronicles of a Gooner YouTube channel, I said that it was a brilliant cross from Olise. It wasn't Olise, it was Serge Gnabry. So I apologize for that. Olise was playing on the right-hand side, wasn't he? Which is why I assumed it was him. But as soon as I saw it back after I recorded that video, I thought, oh, what an idiot. It was Gnabry. But I'm not going to delete the video and go again. It is what it is. You can all slag me off in the comments standard. Anyway, so you watch that goal, and that is, for me, the best of Bayern. Joshua Kimmich, wonderful footballer, technically superb. He drops into that back line. He gets on the ball. He looks up, and he spots Gnabry out on that right-hand side. Now, for me, it is undisputed that that Bayern looked at Myles Lewis-Skelly and thought, that's our way in. Now, Myles Lewis-Skelly, listen, I don't want to have a go at him, and I don't want to sound like I'm digging him out for his performance because he's not played a lot this season. He's still young. He's still learning. And you could make the case that the guy's not a left back. Like, he's not been brought up to play at left back. He doesn't have the same height, the same physical build that Calafiori does or that Piero Hincapié does. One of the reasons that Mikel Arteta has gone for bigger built fullbacks, in my opinion, is because of what we saw last night, which is the opposition dropping balls over the top of our fullbacks. And so when you play Myles Lewis-Skelly there, you always run that risk. You always run that risk. And if you've got a player of Kimmich's ability, and you're not going to come up against Joshua Kimmich every week, and you're not going to come up against Serge Gnabry every week, but when you've got players of that level, even the smallest chink in the armor, they will exploit it. And they did that. Brilliant pass. The ball comes across from Gnabry. First time, brilliant. And there was Lennart Kohl. What a player this kid is, by the way. Like, I know we talk a lot about our young players, and rightly so. They deserve all the love and the praise in the world. But Lennart Kohl is a fantastic footballer. He really, really is. And I talked about him in my build-up to the game on BBC London last night because I'd seen a fair bit of him. And to have him starting in a game like that says a lot. To have him playing in a Bayern Munich team that is performing as well overall as Vincent Kompany's is at that tender age, it says a lot about the kid's talent and sort of what they think of him there. So yeah, wasn't surprised to see him finish the way he did. But yeah, just touching on that left back point very, very quickly. There was a point later in the game, wasn't there, where, you know, Myles Lewis-Skelly was struggling with Michael Olise, and it wasn't just Michael Olise. At times it was Kohl, it was Gnabry if he went out there. Basically, the left back was our weakness last night. And Mikel Arteta made the change, I felt, just at the right time, just before we got punished for it, just before we got exposed for it. And he brought on Calafiori, who shut down Bayern on their right-hand side and obviously gave us a bit more going forward as well. Now, Lewis-Skelly's game is to go in field. His game is to go inside, searching for the ball, getting on the ball, etc., etc. And that's fine. There'll be other matches where, you know, the game suits him. And those are the games that you want to see him playing in and you want to utilize him. But for me, it was sort of 10, 15 minutes in. And I realized that this was not the game for Myles Lewis-Skelly. Now, you probably could have said that in the lead up to the game, but we knew changes were coming. How many changes was the big dispute and the big debate. And listen, I'm going to claim my flowers here, okay? Because I don't normally claim my flowers, but I'm going to do it today. When we did the lineup podcast on Wednesday morning, I picked the exact lineup that Mikel went with. The exact lineup. I went with Raya in goal. I went with Timber, Saliba, Mosquera, Lewis-Skelly, Zubimendi, Rice, Saka, Eze, Trossard, and Merino up front. Now, people disagree. That's absolutely fine. But if you see some of the DMs I got for suggesting that actually Nkapie should be left out because of the travelling, because of the fatigue, because he was touch and go ahead of the North London derby, but he made it. I said that he should be left out, and I said that Mosquera should play at centre back. If you read some of the messages that I got, wow. I replied to every single one of them with a wink face, by the way, once the team news came out, because Mikel Arteta picked the exact team that I suggested. And that team went on to win comprehensively against one of the best in Europe. Christian Mosquera was fantastic. He is pretty much every time he plays. And that's why I don't understand why people seem to worry about him coming into the side yesterday. Yeah, he's not naturally left-sided or left-footed, but he did play on the left side of a central defensive pairing quite a bit for Valencia. So I don't have too much of a concern there. Our left side was a little bit weaker for the fact that we'd made 2 changes there. But I would argue that if you're, dividing the culpability between Mosquera and Lewis-Skelly, and again, this is not me having a pop at Lewis-Skelly, but I think the culpability was probably 70% Myles Lewis-Skelly, maybe even more if you want. So yeah, Guitar Solo says Arteta picked the team you predicted, not suggested. H. Well, no, because it was my team that I would pick. It wasn't Mikel Arteta's. It wasn't my predicted team. It was the team that I would pick. I don't do predicted teams because you just don't know. I always pick the team that I'm going to pick. So who knows? Maybe he watched and decided that I was right. No, I'm kidding. Of course not. Of course he didn't. Right. Let's move on. So I've covered the first 2 goals of the game, Jurrien Timber and Lennart Cole. I think before we cover the rest of the goals, I think we've got to talk about the way that Arsenal came out in the second half. Because, as I say, at 1-1, there was a part of me that was looking at it and going, if we just cruise through the second half and it finishes 1-1, I'm fine with that. But as I've already highlighted, this is not a group of players that was willing to go, yeah, do you know what? Let's just make sure that we don't lose this. Let's just get the point and we can turn our attention to Chelsea. No, they came out and they really did believe that Bayern were there for the taking, and they absolutely were. And Arsenal were buzzing around them. They were all over them like a cheap suit in that second half. Bayern struggled in every aspect. They struggled with every duel. They couldn't get out. They rarely ventured forward. We were pummeling them from set pieces, from long balls, from balls in behind. We were carrying the ball through the lines, and Declan Rice was a real sort of instigator in that. And we're going to come on to talk about those individual performances after the break. His was one that certainly deserves highlighting. And then on 69 minutes, Arsenal put together a wonderful move down the left-hand side. Calafiori, fresh off the bench, delivers an excellent ball into the box. And there was Noni Madueke to finish from close range. Noni Madueke, who'd come on in the first half to replace Leandro Trossard on the left, but by this point was playing on the right-hand side. And listen, I've done my apology to Noni podcast already because I hold my hands up. When we signed him, I didn't think it was the right deal. I didn't think the price was right. In fact, I thought that we wildly overpaid for him, and I'm happy to own that opinion. I've already come around to the idea that I was completely and utterly wrong. I've admitted that. I've owned that. He is a real asset to this squad. The fact that he can play left and right, I think, is massive. But also, for him to get his first goal on a night like that, I think is special, because I was also one of the people that when I did praise him earlier in the season prior to his injury, when I did say, look, I was wrong about Noni and all the rest of it, the one thing that was holding me back from going full, like, this is the biggest, embarrassment for those of us that were sort of critical of the signing, was the fact that he hadn't scored or assisted yet. And so for all the brilliance that we were highlighting, for all the positive things he was doing, he still hadn't put any actual numbers on the board. Well, that began last night, and it began against Bayern Munich. And for that, you've got to give him unbelievable praise and credit. And that roar that he let out when he scored that goal, it said it all, didn't it? It said it all. And dare I say that, yeah, there were some questions asked of Noni at the beginning. I think there's a difference, right? I think some people were personal towards Noni. Some of us, I can hold my hands up and say that wasn't me. What I was critical of the signing, but it wasn't oh, Noni, I'm going to not support you and I hope you fail. It was, is this the best use of funds for Arsenal Football Club? In fact, at that point, I was adamant it wasn't. I was wrong. And the more we get to know him, the more we get to see him play for the Arsenal, the more we hear from him in interviews, the more apparent it is that he's just a really focused and special young man. And listen, again, the misconceptions around him, they're real. Because if you look back to his Chelsea career, there were moments. There was a moment where he argued about a spot kick with a player in the public eye. There was a moment where he said something silly, like, and I'm not saying that you should crucify someone for doing that. We've all done it in the past. We've all said something we shouldn't. We've all done something we shouldn't have. But I feel like I had questions about his character, and all of those questions have been answered in this very, very short period of time. And I'm delighted to say that I really do believe now that he'll be a really important part of the side moving forward. And then Gabriel Martinelli back on the pitch obviously offers something very, very different. Was able to run in behind, having won the ball back himself, by the way, on the edge of our box. Manuel Neuer, what on earth were you doing? I know he's a bit of a sweeper keeper, but the minute the ball come off of Gabriel Martinelli, even if it was a bit of a clumsy touch, Neuer was in all sorts of trouble. And Martinelli had the pace to get away and roll it into the back of the net and put Arsenal 3-1 up and essentially decide the game as a contest on 77 minutes. And the place was rocking, the place was buzzing, and it has you sitting there thinking, why did I ever question whether we should have taken this game seriously or not? Because, and as I said this in my reaction video from Emirates Stadium last night, I said this then, and I'll say it again now for those that haven't seen that. It's kind of something I touched on in the build-up as well. Look, if you look at the potential upside, so the potential upside was big statement victory in Europe against one of the best teams on the continent, puts you top of the Champions League. That's the upside. The potential downside is that people get tired. You run out of steam a little bit. And I'm talking about the potential downside to taking it as seriously as we did. And maybe you're not at 100% for Chelsea come 65, 70 minutes. But with more and more options returning to the squad, that is a problem that I feel like we have the tools to deal with. So I feel less concerned about that than I would have done maybe a week ago, a week and a half ago, when it wasn't quite clear who would be back, who isn't back, who's still be absent, etc. But I feel like the upside of overcoming a hurdle at which we've previously fallen is massive. It's another step towards that psychological place that we need to be in if we're going to be successful this season. I know it's not a knockout tie, and Bayern have historically done us in knockout ties over two legs, etc., etc. But if you think about the way we kind of built up our rivalry with Man City, we used to lose, but there was a valiant performance here or there, and you'd go, oh, we're getting closer, and then we'd find a way to beat them, and then we get to the point where we completely outplay them. Gradual steps. And to overcome Bayern the way we did, I'm not saying that it means we're going to win the Champions League. We beat PSG in the league phase last season, only to lose to them over two legs in the semi-final. We know that it doesn't necessarily dictate what the future is going to look like. But psychologically, I think it's a massive boost to beat a team that over the years, as a football club, have had your number. So I think that's huge. Look, we're going to take a short pause. When we come back, we're going to go through some individual performances. We're going to take lots of your thoughts as well from the live chat. Looking forward to hearing from you guys. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner pod.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner. Like and subscribe.
That's right. Like and subscribe if you're with us on YouTube. If you're listening to us on Apple or Spotify, please do leave us a review. And you can become a patron for just £3 a month. So less than the price of a cup of coffee. All you need to do is click on the QR code in the top corner of your screens. Or if you're listening to us on audio, click on the link in the description. As I say, you can sign up for less than the price of a cup of coffee per month. You'll get access to our Discord server as well as additional bonus exclusive content and every single episode of the pod completely ad-free. So come over and join us now. A big thank you to those who have done so over the last few days and who continue to support us. Right. Shall we start working our way through some of those individual performances? Because I've got a few that I want to talk about. First of all, we got to cover the man of the match, Declan Rice. Wow. What a display from Declan, especially in that second half. He was everywhere, winning tackles on the left, winning tackles on the right, carrying the ball through the lines, bursting through. Probably should have scored a goal of his own when he forced a good save out of Neuer with his left boot. There was just so much to love about Declan Rice's performance yesterday. And sometimes I feel like we all know that Declan's a great player. We all know how important he is to the team. I've always said that for me, his athleticism is his number one thing. That's what makes him stand out from everybody else. But every time you kind of say something like that, Declan Rice then sort of lays down a gauntlet and says, no, I'm more than that. I'm better than that. And he goes out and he shows how all-encompassing he can be. And the more you watch him, the more this idea of Declan Rice being a six becomes maybe outdated and becomes an idea that I think fails to consider all his other strengths. He was just immense last night from start to finish, but in that second half in particular, we all enjoyed the challenge on Harry Kane. That really kind of got the crowd up and off their feet. His charge through for the chance that I just referenced was unbelievable. He's just playing at a whole new level right now, and we need to keep him fit. It's really, really important. But I also think he's developed a higher level of in-game intelligence since coming to Arsenal. And that comes from working with a good coach and working with better players around you, not to throw shade at West Ham or anyone there. But, Declan Rice has repeatedly spoken about how Mikel Arteta's kind of taken him to another level, how he sees football differently since working under him. And I think you're seeing that in Declan Rice's game right now. Having Martin Zubimendi next to him is brilliant, because I feel like although Declan Rice maybe compensates for Zubimendi in some ways physically, Zubimendi brings something to the table that maybe Declan Rice doesn't, and therefore the pair really complement each other well. And it has become more of a pair because obviously with Eze in the team, who plays out in a sort of 10 role, which isn't quite the same role that Martin Odegaard would occupy when he's on the pitch. I think it's even more important that Rice and Zubimendi work as a pair, and they do so in the knowledge that they're probably not going to get the same support from Eze that they would from Odegaard. And that's fine. Okay, that's fine. It's just a different way of playing. It's just a different idea. But Declan Rice, man of the match, deservedly so. I wondered if someone else was going to get it. I wondered if one of the goal scorers was going to get it. Jurrien Timber was unreal as well. Obviously scored a goal in the game too. But I thought when I saw Declan Rice being handed the award and sort of posing in front of the backdrop for the official photos and all the rest of it, I thought, yeah, you know what, you deserve that. You absolutely deserve that. I've mentioned Jurrien Timber. I'm not going to go too big on Jurrien Timber today, not because I don't think he was brilliant, but just because I've said so much about his performances in recent pods. I'd only be repeating myself. Noni Madueke I want to touch on, and we touched on the goal and how important that was and the kind of way he's gone about proving everyone wrong, which is amazing. But I want to talk about him as a player from a more technical side. Obviously, we lose Leandro Trossard, which isn't ideal. And for those of you asking if there's any update on Trossard, there isn't at the moment. After the game yesterday, Mikel Arteta told us that they weren't sure. They'd have to look at it. He felt something, and they just didn't want to take any risk with him. He'll be gutted because he will feel like he's lost his place now in this team. That's the level of competition right now, that if you're out, you can lose your place. And then you might have to wait 3-4 weeks for an opportunity to come back around. Yeah, you'll get chances from the bench and whatnot, but in terms of starting, he might feel like he'd finally kind of nailed that position down, made it his own, and then all of a sudden he's picked up this injury. It's unfortunate, but you know what? We've got the cover to deal with it, and Noni Madueke plays a big part in that. I think with Madueke, he's got incredible running power. He's very comfortable going down the left-hand side on the outside of people. He's very comfortable playing on the left-hand side and coming inside to the half space as well, where he still then has that angle to shift the ball onto the left foot and then fire back across goal or deliver across. When he plays on the right-hand side, he plays a slightly different game, But again, you would imagine that being a left-footed player, that all he wants to do is cut inside, and it's not. He's quite happy to feint inside and then take you around the outside and then cut across the byline. That's very, very Noni Madueke. The goal he scored was fantastic, obviously, but his all-round game, I thought, when he came on was excellent, and it's great. It's really great to have him back. I do want to talk about Mikel Merino. I mean, look, I've said many, many times he's not a striker. I've said many, many times that we lose something when he's playing up there because he's not quite as mobile. He's a little bit more static. In recent weeks, I think we've seen a bit of a tweak to the way that Mikel Merino plays the centre-forward role. And I think that has been down to having Eberechi Eze playing off of him. Now, when you've got a natural number 10 who's always high, who's always close to you, you can interchange positions a lot more. You can vacate that centre forward area knowing that someone's close by to step into that area as a part of your build-up. And that's what we've seen against Spurs in particular and against Bayern last night. There were times when Mikel Merino was dropping into the midfield, and because he's dropping as a spare man, he's got time to receive, to turn, to clip it over the top of opposition defenders and release other people. And he's such an intelligent footballer. But not just that, man. The work rate is phenomenal. There was a point late on in the game, this must have been after 80 minutes, where he was back at left back defending, and he's on the floor winning us a free kick. And I just thought to myself, the effort that this guy puts in is remarkable. And yes, we'd like to have Gyökeres back. Yes, we'd like to have Kai Havertz back. But you know what? The more Mikel Merino performs like this, the more there are going to be people out there saying, and it's a valid opinion to have, leave him up front. Let him continue there. While he's in this vein of form, let him continue to play there. I think when you've got Odegaard back in the midfield, and that's if he gets back in the midfield, to be clear, and he is in a slightly deeper position, and he's looking to thread the ball through, he's looking to pick people out. I think that actually having a Gyökeres is more beneficial because he's going to make those runs early enough, and he's going to stretch the opposition. That then creates space for others from midfield to arrive into the vacant areas. But I think when you're playing with an Eze who isn't going to drop deep and get on the ball as much, he's probably going to have half the touches that Martin Odegaard would in a game, but is able to really kind of make the difference in that final third. I think actually having a forward like Merino, it complements him, doesn't it? The two complement each other. That's the kind of takeaway, I think, from the last two games. Amazing to see Gabriel Martinelli back in as well. That sprinting power. It's great to have that, whether you start with that, whether you bring it on off the bench. And again, he's racing through and scoring an important goal for Arsenal. And it's interesting because, again, it was Eze who was the one that clipped the ball over the top, anticipating Martinelli's run. And clearly there is a good understanding between those two. Clearly there is a good understanding between those two. Clearly there's a relationship forming and developing. And sometimes that just clicks in football. Sometimes there are players you just click with. I remember when I played, there were certain wingers that I just clicked with. Like, they knew what I was going to do. I knew what they were going to do. And it wasn't because we'd had a sort of a conversation pre-kickoff of any great substance. It was because, don't you? Sometimes you just click with someone and it works. And I feel like that Eze Martinelli combination is really, really working. Obviously, Martin Odegaard returned as well, came off the bench quite late on in the game, but it was fantastic to see him back. He came on and he got the last 9 minutes plus stoppage time. So he probably played about 15 in total. Look, I don't think that makes him, necessarily ready to start at Stamford Bridge at the weekend, but to have him back in contention and to have him back in the squad is massive. So delighted to see him come back. Look, just to kind of summarize on the game before we go into your comments from the live chat, I just want to say I thought Arsenal were brilliant on the night. The questions around how seriously we were going to take it were answered by the team selection. I think going forward, we probably shouldn't have that debate as much as we did in the lead up to this game, because we should understand by now that is not Arteta's way. And when that blows up in your face and it backfires, there will be people that come out and criticize it. Hell, I might even be one of those people in that situation. But when it works, you've got to give the guy his flowers, because the feel-good factor was already there from the North London derby. But had we kind of played a bit of a damp squib with Bayern last night, I'm not saying the feel-good factor from the North London derby would have completely disappeared, and therefore we'd be taking none of that into the game at Stamford Bridge. But you do get the feeling that things can go flat pretty quickly in terms of supporters' feelings and moods. And so it must be the same within a changing room. Like logic tells us that it must be the same within a changing room. And, you could talk about the team. You could talk about, how we lined up, the tactical approach. What I saw last night was a group of players that wanted to win this, smelt blood and wanted to go and take their next victim. They did not want a draw. They were not content with seeing the game out. They wanted to go and put Bayern Munich to the sword, perhaps in part to prove to everybody else that they are good enough, but also perhaps in part to prove to themselves that they are good enough to challenge for the game's biggest honours and hopefully this season get over the line. It is looking good. It really, really is. But we're not even into December yet. And for that reason, we have to keep our feet on the ground. We have to stay relaxed. It would be amazing if we could wrap up Champions League qualification that little bit earlier. Obviously, we've got 3 games to go. We've got Bruges, we've got Inter, and we've got Kairat Almaty, which is amazing in terms of having a fixture that you would see, with all due respect to them, as a bit of a banker. And yeah, look, we get to go to San Siro and test ourselves again. We get to go to Bruges or Brugge, whatever you call them. I need to look that up, by the way, because I'm commentating on that game. Yeah, you get a chance to test yourselves, don't you? And maintain those high standards. And what I found was really, really interesting was watching Mikel on the sidelines, because even when it was 3-1, there was 13 minutes of normal time to play, let's say, there or thereabouts. And it would have been quite easy for Arsenal to just drop off a little bit, to kind of sit in their shape, to try and absorb a little bit. No, Mikel Arteta, you should have seen him on the touchline. If you were there, you would have seen it. Constantly urging his players to press, to close down. And listen, some people say it's too much. But I think, and listen, when people go down with injuries because they've been pushed too hard, yeah, you're going to say it's too much. And in those scenarios, and in that case, and that has been the case very, very often in recent times, you got to look at it and you got to go, yeah, you know what? We got to change that. We've got to do something better in terms of the way we're dealing with that potential risk. But at the same time, something that Jurrien Timber said in the press conference that really kind of resonated with me was about the standards and leading by example. And if your manager, if you look over on the touchline and your manager has kind of gone and sat down, folded his arms, he's all smiles, he's clearly having conversations, and maybe isn't as engaged in the game as he was prior to you going 3-1 up, that can cause standards to slip. Jurrien Timber said in his press conference that Mikel Arteta leads by example. And so Mikel Arteta remaining focused the way he has been, constantly urging people to do their job, not to switch off, to keep going, to keep pushing, that must rub off on your players in terms of making sure that you are switched on for the entire duration of the game. I'm going to do some player ratings today. We don't always do player ratings, but I feel like last night was a game to do that. David, it's going to be really simple. David Raya, 9. Timber, 9. Saliba, 9. Mosquera, 9. Lewis-Skelly, 6. Zubimendi, 8. Rice, 9. Saka, 8. Eze, 9. Trossard, I can't really give him a rating because he went off as early as he did, but I'll give him a 7 standard for up until when he went off. Madueke, I'm going to give him a 9. And Mikel Merino, I'm going to give him a 9. And the reason I've done that exercise very, very quickly without much thought is just to highlight that everyone, to a man, was at a really extraordinarily high level. And that's where Arsenal are at as a team right now. Top of both leagues we are currently. It's a great place to be in it. It's a really, really great place to be. Right. Have you got any questions? If you've got some, pop them in the live chat. We're going to take another very, very, very brief pause. We'll be gone for a matter of seconds. And then we'll work our way through your questions from the live chat to finish off today's episode of the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast. Don't go anywhere.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner. like and subscribe.
That's right. Like and subscribe. Ober1 says, Arsenal fans always have something to fight about. Damn, just be happy, people. Why must we have agendas? No, absolutely. Absolutely, man. You got to enjoy moments like this. I said it right at the beginning. What the hell is the point in following a football team if you don't enjoy the highs? Like, why do you do it? Like, I got into football because I love football. I got into football because I experienced some incredible buzzes when I was really young. And that gave me this hunger and this desire for it. And I've been obsessed ever since. Anyone who knows me will tell you. Anyone who knows me will tell you. My mum used to tell me when I was at school, and I used to come home and I had homework and it was, I couldn't be bothered to do it. And sometimes I'd rush it and my handwriting would be like messy. And my mum used to say, if only your handwriting was as neat as it is when you're writing out a football team on a sheet of paper. And it's true. Or if you'd only put enough effort in, if you'd only put in the effort that you put in when you were studying the league table. How comes you're crap at maths, Harry? But when you need to work out a points difference or how many games, are still to be played or goal difference or whatever, how comes you can do that just like that? Because I wanted to. Football brings us so much joy. Make sure you live the joy. Otherwise, what the hell is the point? Franklin says, I've been worried about the injuries we had. Me too. So happy with how well the team has pulled through. Absolutely. It's been a really challenging period with those injuries. Listen, this big week, it's not over yet. We've got that trip to Stamford Bridge. And you know what? It doesn't really let up, does it? Because we then play Brentford on the Wednesday night. And then after that, we go to Villa away, early kickoff on a Saturday. That's not an easy game either. It's not an easy game at all. James Bond says if we win the next Champions League game, it will probably guarantee us a top 8 finish. It'll be good if we can manage that. Franklin also says, could this be the season for major trophies and the unification of the fan base finally? Look, there's such a wide variety and range of opinions out there. I don't think you'll ever get total unification, but there will at least, I'm sure, be some harmony for a while everybody sort of celebrates. Because look, there's people out there that, have very different opinions. I don't doubt that they care for the club. And so I'm sure they'll be celebrating as well. But yeah, like in terms of getting everybody singing from the same page about everything, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. Christopher wants to highlight Gabby Martinelli because he says kudos to him. He broke up the play in our defensive third and then scored at the other end. Yeah, I've already explained that, but it's definitely worth shouting out again. Afsar says, when Gyökeres is fit, do you drop Merino? Also, how do you fit in Odegaard? Honestly, Afsar, at this moment in time, answering this question today, no, I'd stay as it is. I'd leave Merino up front and I'd bring Gyökeres in and give him some minutes, give him 15, 20 minutes at the end, whatever. If the game requires it, bring him on, bring him in and let him build himself back up. We don't need to rush him back because of how well Merino's playing. And on Odegaard, again, same thing. The whole point in building competition is that you don't have players that just walk in and disrupt momentum. And I'm not saying that they're disruptive and they're bad or they'll have a negative impact. But my point simply is that why change a winning team? Those guys are going to have to wait patiently now for their opportunity. They'll get opportunities off the bench, I'm sure. Martin Odegaard, it feels like, is someone that we will probably try and find a way of getting in more than anybody else because he is the club captain. But, even then, like, whatever, man, leave him out. Like, he's a good enough character, I think, Martin Odegaard, to understand that Eze's on fire right now. And you're not taking that position just like that, regardless of whether you wear the armband or not. He's not a disruptive character. He's a good leader. He's a good person by all accounts. And I think for that reason, it's not like he's Cristiano Ronaldo and he's going to throw his toys out the pram if you tell him he's not playing and he's going to go, I'm the bloody captain. He'll want to play, obviously. He'll be desperate to play, of course. But I think you keep it as it is for now, in answer to your question. James Bond says, any news on Gabriel's scan? Should have been yesterday. I haven't got any news or update on that. And I'm not sure when we can expect to hear anything on that. The good sign is that Big Gabby's been on the pitch after the North London derby and after the game last night, celebrating with his teammates, which I know it doesn't say a lot in terms of the severity of the injury, but he's there. He's all smiles, which means that he's still involved. He's still very much integrated with everyone. But right now, again, like it goes, back to the point I was just making about Odegaard and Gyökeres. Yeah, we miss them as options, and we miss Big Gabby, of course we do. But if Nketiah and Mosquera can share that role between them over the coming weeks and do it to the standard that they have so far, like, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. And there was a lot of doom and gloom when we heard that Gabby was injured, and rightly so, because he's a really big and important player. That is the natural response. But the more you watch these other guys come in and perform at that level, the more faith you'll have in them, the more belief you'll have in them to go out and do what's necessary and what's required. Andy says, who is little Harry's favourite Arsenal player? I'm going to say Declan Rice. And do you know what? I interviewed Declan Rice after an Arsenal game. I've told you about this before because it's like the greatest moment of my life. But I interviewed Declan Rice after an Arsenal game a little while back, and he said that he's seen our content and to keep up the good work, which was amazing to hear. I so badly wish at the time it wasn't the right environment. I probably couldn't have done it, but I so badly wish at the time I got him to do a little video for my son, because he would have been so gassed about that. I mean, last night he came home from school, and as he came home from school, I was leaving to head down to Emirates Stadium, and he sort of asked his mum, "Can I stay up till 10 o'clock tonight?" And she hadn't realised that it was a big game against Bayern Munich. She was like, "You can watch the first half." He's 6 years old, for God's sake, and he sort of managed to get a hold of his mum's phone, and he called me and he said, "Dad, Mum won't let me stay up and watch Bayern." So I had to veto my wife on this occasion and say that it's Bayern, let him stay up. He's buzzing for it. And at sort of like 9:30, 9:45 p.m, while I was at the game, I was receiving videos of him knee sliding across the living room in celebration for Arsenal's last 2 goals, which is amazing to see. But yeah, I think Declan Rice is the one. I share that story because, you know what? Like, I just, it's not that I want to say, oh, my son's this amazing Arsenal supporter at 6 years old. No, it's not that. It's relevant to the point I was making a little bit earlier on. Football brings so much joy, whether you're 6 or you're 60 or you're somewhere in between like me. Football can bring you joy. It can create emotion. It can get you doing things that you didn't know you could do. Okay, it can also lead to you breaking things as well. That's happened to me in the past as well. But my point is that enjoy it, lap it up, take it all in, make the most of it. Because, these are the things that you're going to look back on. Like, I still remember the joy of 97, 98. I still remember as an 8-year-old going to the parade. I still remember getting up on the roof of the Highbury Islington McDonald's, because my dad had a friend who was the manager of that branch. He got us up there. So we were almost at bus level with the players as they were going past. And I was waving my little flag. That will stay with me forever. That's what football can do. So don't sit and nitpick when we win. Like, be constructive in criticism, no problem. But don't nitpick. Don't say, oh, it was only this team or it was only that team, or why are we celebrating like we won the Champions League? Just bloody enjoy it. Just bloody enjoy it. I think Guna Oz is spot on. Just going back to Myles Lewis-Skelly, he says, I'd just consider the last game as an MLS off day. Yeah, for sure. Like, I highlighted that I felt it was a weakness. I highlighted that I felt like it was something that Bayern looked to expose. But is it something I'm reading into too deeply? No, of course not. Mickey Morris says, good morning, Harry. Long time since I caught you live, and it couldn't have happened at a better time. I only have one word for the performance. Masterclass. Great to see you, mate. Nicholas Beltran says, what was the atmosphere like when it was 0-0 and 1-1? I only watched on TV, but it seemed like I could only hear the Bayern fans. Seemed quiet at various points. Yeah, it was a little bit more relaxed than it would have been maybe if it was a knockout tie, but that's understandable given the game and what was riding on it, essentially. But look, you heard the Bayern fans, because the Bayern fans are bloody incredible, and German support when they travel, they always are. So, yeah, look, I've always said this, English football atmospheres, sorry guys, they don't stack up to those on the continent. They just don't. We don't have an ultra culture. We don't have A lot of the things we seem to sneer at drums here for whatever reason, even though I think they're great in terms of building atmosphere. But yeah, that's just to be expected, I guess, Nicholas. Jack says, Harry, do you have a different feeling this season? It just seems like we've finally taken that elite step we haven't taken in the last couple of decades. I want to say yes, because that's how I'm feeling legitimately, but I also don't want to get carried away because, as I've already pointed out, we're not even in December yet. But it does feel different. It does feel like, and I spoke to David Hillier about this yesterday, it does feel like we're not looking over our shoulder anymore. It does feel like we're really comfortable in our own skin, that we're super uber focused on what we need to do. And that clarity and being that little bit more serene has led to us being a much more effective and efficient side. And so, yeah, great to see it. Great to see it. Right. Look, I am going to sign out, and guitar solos at it again in the chat. Apparently, I said that Merino is playing well at centre forward because of Eze. No, I didn't say because of Eze. I said they both complement each other, and it works quite well. And partnerships in football are really, really important. Relationships are really, really important. Nobody's saying don't give Merino any praise because the only reason he's playing well is because Eze's in the team. Have a day off, mate, trying to spin what I'm saying. What I am saying is that they complement each other nicely. That is it. Stop making a mountain out of a molehill. There's a few in the live chat that love doing that on a daily basis. I suppose it sparks debate in the chat. I'm all for the engagement, but come on. Let's just enjoy the game. Let's just enjoy the victory. Go and sit down, watch it back. That's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do. Anyway, right, I'm going to love you and leave you. There'll be a Patreon pod out later today for you guys to get involved in. Remember, if you want to become a patron, you can do so. Patreon.com/The Chronicles of Aguna. The link is in the description. Or if you're watching us, you can click the QR code in the top corner of the screen. It will take you right there. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you'll get access to our exclusive content. You'll get all our regular content completely ad-free, and you can join our Discord server. There's a lot of patrons, by the way, that might not be aware of the new Discord server. If you go into your patron inbox, you will have a link there. So come and join us in that chat. It's really great fun. There's some fantastic people in there. Lots of excellent, good discussions and great stories being shared. So go over and check that out. Remember, if you are with us on YouTube, like and subscribe. That is really, really important. And of course, hype the video, which is a new thing these days. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please do leave us a review, as that really, really does help. I'm actually going to record a preview podcast looking ahead to the Chelsea game. Now, we won't do the lineup stuff. It will be a bit like what we did for the Bayern game, where we did a press conference, not a press conference. We did a discussion around the game that involved some of the press conference stuff. And then we did the lineup the next day. Because the press conference is on Friday afternoon and I can't make it because I'm on TalkSport 2, what we're going to do is I'm going to record right now an episode with a really good guest. Those of you that listen to the social on TalkSport 2 will be more than familiar with Chelsea fan and my good pal, Kwaku Afari. He's going to join me to bring us the Chelsea angle. We're going to have a good discussion about both teams. That'll be out with you on Friday morning. And then on Saturday morning, we will look at the team and we will continue our build up to that big game at Stamford Bridge on Sunday. So lots to come on the Chronicles of Aguna. I suppose now's a better time than any to sign up as a patron, with the games and the content coming thick and fast. I'll see you all on the next one. Until then, take care of yourselves. Have a wonderful Thursday. Up the Arsenal. Goodbye.
Chronicles of Aguna. Like and subscribe. Chronicles of Aguna. Harry Symeou time. Come on, you Gunners.